Okay. As I said, again, my name is Amanda Kristen, Project Manager, Broward MPO Complete Streets Initiative. Welcome to the first meeting of the Complete Streets Advisory Committee in January 11th, 2021. We're all glad that you're here. I did distribute a couple of times over the last few weeks the agenda for today's meeting, and we have a different agenda for today. We're going to be doing what we at the Broward MPO are calling a state of the committee meeting today. But the first part of the meeting will be our typical Complete Streets Advisory Committee meeting, where we will have welcome and introductions, and I will ask Ricardo to go ahead and call on the participants for them to introduce themselves, share their name, the organization or municipality from which they are attending, and their title or their role with that organization.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me well? Having a difficult time with my audio today.
We can hear you.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Again, welcome to the Broward MPO Complete Streets Advisory Committee. Happy New Year to everyone. So I'm gonna just go down the list, and please, when I call your name, just say your name again and the agency that you represent. Okay, let's start with Doris. Doris Span.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Doris. Thank you for being here.
Don't forget Willie Foundation for Pedestrian Safety. I am the executive director. And what else would you like to know?
No, that's it. Thank you. Welcome. We just wanted to make sure that the people who are here, we know who they are and where they're coming from. Thank you so much, Doris.
You're welcome.
Welcome again. Roger Lilling.
Yes, I'm here, Ricardo. Roger is here, Broward County Engineering.
Perfect, Roger. Welcome. Oh my God. Mohan.
Hey, how are you, Ricardo?
How are you, Mohan? Who are you with?
I'm with Carnahan Proctor Cross. I'm the traffic engineer and Complete Streets Initiatives person.
Perfect, Mohan. Thank you for joining us.
Pretty excited to be here.
Awesome.
Great stuff from MPO.
Thank you. Great to have you. I'm gonna really not gonna say this name correctly, but I'll give I'll do my best. Ajayi Abidemi.
That's actually perfect. I'm with the Tanner Davy. I'm the assistant town engineer.
Welcome. I think it's the first time we have you on board, right?
I'm not sure. I think I've been part of other meetings before.
Perfect. Thank you for being here. All right. We have Ken Reinhardt.
Yeah, I'm Ken Reinhardt. I'm on the CAC and I also represent AARP.
All right. Then next we have, welcome, Bradley Swing.
City of Sunrise, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Bradley. Thank you.
Thank you.
Azita from the City of Hollywood.
Hello, Azita Behmardi, City of Hollywood. Nice to meet you.
Welcome, Azita.
Thank you.
Celeste Dunmore.
Happy New Year. It's Celeste Dunmore from the City of Lauderdale Lakes.
Welcome, Celeste. Then we have Karen Warfel. Karen? Okay, we'll come back to Karen. We have Larry Heimowitz.
Hi, I'm with FDOT Policy and Mobility Planning. I'm a planning specialist.
Thank you, Larry. Welcome. Lenny? Woman from Broward County? Lenny, can you hear us? I think we're gonna hear Lenny. I think she's on mute now, but we'll come back to you, Lenny. Michael Rigetti?
Hello,
Lenny,
can you hear me?
we can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Lenny Human. I'm with the Broward County Planning Council. Thank you.
Welcome, Lenny. Michael Rigetti?
Michael Rigetti, City of Coconut Creek, Senior Project Manager.
Thank you, welcome. Tina.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. It's Tina Jew. I'm with the City of Deerfield Beach Planning and Development Services Department.
Perfect, welcome. Good to hear from you. Vikas.
Hey, Ricardo. Happy New Year, everyone. This is Vikas. I'm with TYLN International. I'm Transportation Planning Manager, Transportation Specialist, working on complete streets projects. Excited to be here.
Thank you, welcome, Vikas. Good to hear from you. And then we're gonna go to our staff. Let's start with Stephanie Garcia.
Hi, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you fine, Stephanie.
Perfect. Happy New Year. Stephanie Garcia with the Broward MPO, Complete Streets Manager.
Faisal.
Hey, everyone. Faisal Kershi from Broward MPO. I'm the Mobility Projects Manager.
Perfect, thank you, Faz. Carrie?
Hi, good afternoon. Carrie McNeil with the Broward MPO, City Services Transportation Planner.
From our City Services Department, we also have Darcy. Darcy, will you please introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Darcy Mayer, and I'm a Senior City Transportation Planner here with the MPO in the City Services team.
Perfect, welcome. Levi, I see Levi is here as well.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Levi Stewart Figueroa with the Broward MPO. I'm also with the City Services team, and I'm a Senior Transportation Planner here at the MPO.
Perfect, thank you, Levi. Christopher?
Good afternoon. My name is Christopher Restrepo. I'm part of the Broward MPO's planning and programming team. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Christopher. And the last, I think we have also our Deputy Director here, doing it on purpose to make us nervous. So everybody please behave and do the right thing. James Cromer. James?
Hey, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Something's wrong with the video. I work with these group of people. I'm going to slip out, Ricardo and Amanda, just so you know, at about 3 o'clock. So I wish I could stay for the whole meeting, but I have another thing I have to take care of.
That's okay. Thank you for the warning. That means we're going to behave until 3. After that, we're going to do something a little different. Thank you, James.
Maybe my 3 o'clock meeting will end quickly, so we'll see. No, there's going to be good discussion later on. That's why I wish I could stay for the later part.
Absolutely. Thank you, James. Thank you for being here. Have I missed anybody?
Peter?
Peter.
Peter Gies?
Hey everybody, Peter Gies with the Broward MPO, rotating into the office. I'm sure many of you are also on similar schedules or working full-time from the office, but it's good to be in the office and also joining for the CSAC this week. I'll be giving a presentation later on. So thanks to the team and Happy New Year, everyone.
Perfect. Thank you, Peter. And I think that's about it. Anybody else have I missed? I don't think I have. I'm looking at the invite list now. I know Karen, you're here. And there's also somebody on the phone as well. I don't know who that person would be.
Sound working now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. It had switched to some weird system that I didn't know I had. So hi, Karen Warfel. I'm with the City of Fort Lauderdale's Transportation and Mobility Planning Department.
Thank you. And the last person who's on the phone, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I'm having trouble with one too. Sorry about
Ricardo, if you do have anyone on the phone, my name is Rebecca Schultz. I'm the the board's coordinator and Zoom host. If you have any issues with Zoom, please shoot me an email, or if you are on your phone having issues muting and unmuting yourself, please use *9. We do have the camera capabilities available for everybody who is here on this side as a panelist. So if you want to be seen on camera, which we love seeing your faces, you're more than welcome to be able to turn them on now. And I believe, Ricardo, you were asking for the last 4 digits, which is 3238. If that person can unmute themselves by doing *9 and identify themselves. But I'll be here in the background, and if you need me, just give me a holler.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, so whoever's on the phone, 3230, 3238, whenever you get a chance to chime in, please do so. Again, thank you. We have a great agenda for you today. It's Amanda put together a great workshop to really guide what are we going to be doing the next year and what type of committee we're going to become. As you know, we started off as a very small group of 10 people to do just one thing, which is basically developed by the Complete Streets Guidelines back in 2013. So we've actually evolved a lot, and we've actually got a bigger committee. So we're growing, and so we want to make sure that this committee it becomes as valuable as it can be. So I'll turn it back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, we're going to start. Thank you very much. That was a succinct summarization of what we're going to be doing today. And we are going to be going over the MPO current efforts as we do with most, the beginnings of most Complete Streets Advisory Committee meetings that we do have. And the first person that we will have do a brief presentation today is Ms. Stephanie Garcia. She is the Complete Streets Manager, and she will be doing an update of the tactical urbanism work that she's been managing. So I'm going to take myself off screen and start the presentation for Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Okay, perfect. So we will start. So as most of you know, and if you didn't know, you will find out today, we do have a tactical urbanism program established since December 2020, so last year. And we were successful on hiring a consultant to help us with this program. So what is coming for Broward MPO and in general for Broward County? As most of you know, we have the Bicycle Pedestrian and Safety Action Plan in 2018. And I think some of you participated even in the development of this plan. Also, some of you participated in the Vocabulary Action Institute intensive training back in 2019 in Decatur, Georgia. And some of you also provided feedback for the Complete Streets Master Plan. So this is something that we've been doing since, I would say, a few years ago. And we finally accomplished this in 2020, by the end of 2020. The idea is to implement quick build projects in order to showcase some safety, connections, and mobility designs that will try to address these issues. The safety, the mobility, and the connections that are inexistent in some areas of the county. So the idea is that through tactical urbanism program, we were gonna implement some sort of projects in the short term, but the idea is that this project will be implemented, will be permanent. So the photo that you see on the right, that's the photo from the team that went to Decatur, Georgia back in 2019. We had the representation of DOT, we had Broward Health Regional Planning Council, and we also had ARP, and of course the City of Miramar elected official. So together we developed a Walkability Action Plan, and one of the objectives of the goals of the plan was to make tactical urbanism possible through the MPO. So we go to the next slide. Thank you. Quick Build, as it is more or less a short-term, quick projects. It's quick projects that you can implement. You know, it could be for a week or even okay. It could be in a week. It could be a month. It could be 6 months. It could be up to 1 year. But the idea is that these projects will help the community understand what exactly they need. So this is something that we work with the community and of course the local government. And so in the picture on the right, you will see this is a pilot project that we implemented in 2019 with the city of Miramar. This was in a school zone. And what we did was working with the school in order to identify what were the safety needs that they had around the school. And what we identified was that there was an intersection that was a bit dangerous for kids when crossing. And even though they have cross guards, they needed infrastructure improvements. So we implemented different improvements in different intersections around the school. And we did this with the school and with the students. And of course, a Broward Sheriff Office. So this was a really great project and a pilot of the pilot of what is coming for Broward County. So the idea is that we're going to be working with you in order to implement this type of projects. If we go to the next slide. So right now, what we are doing is identifying those projects, and we will reach out to you eventually. So what is the information that we are using right now is the Computer Streets Master Plan, a list of projects that we identify using a different criteria. We are also using as data the high injury network that is also available in the website. I don't know if you are familiar with my sidewalk. If you are not, I'm happy to provide the information, but this information is available as part of the performance measures of the Broward MPO. And as you can see, is the line, the red line, all the areas where that represent a safety issue for the county. And of course, the bundled areas that were also identified in the Computer Streets Master Plan. So those are the areas that need the more connections. So we are using this data in order to identify the projects. So right now we are choosing our top 5 projects in order to implement them throughout the time the program will be, active. So this year, 2021, we will implement 1 pilot project, and soon we will provide information about what was the city that we choose according to the criteria applied. And of course, this depends also in the interest of the municipality, because this is a partnership between the two of us, the Broward MPO and the city. And of course, with a partnership comes responsibilities. So I think that's an important step that we're gonna take with this tactical urbanism program. And I hope you are excited, because this is coming for Broward in general, not just for specific cities. And we are open to work with you, and we hope that you are open to work with us. And that's it for the moment. Thank you so much. More information, you can email me.
Thanks, Stephanie. I apologize about that. Next, we're going to have Ricardo Gutierrez do a brief presentation, just a little bit of information about the Safe Streets Summit that will be occurring just about 2 weeks in virtually. So,
yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Yes, we are pretty excited to announce the Safe Street Summit 2021. It's our first virtual Safe Street Summit. We never had this before. Can you go to the next slide, please? Like Amanda says, in January 28th and 29th, and it's going to be virtual. Please go to safestreetsummit.org to register. Next slide, please. This is sort of the program that we have. The Thursday before the 28th, we're going to have some deep dive sessions from 1:30 to 4:15. On Friday, the January 29th, actually, that's the main day of the event. It starts at 8 o'clock, it ends at 6 p.m. We have plenary sessions starting from 9 a.m. to 4:45, and we have also a social virtual networking hour from 4:45 to 6 p.m. So please join us. We have a really good lineup this year. Registration ends on January 22nd. Registration at the time for most of us here is still $100. Please don't forget SafeStreetSummit.org for additional information and to register. Next slide, please. These are the deep dive sessions the day before. Actually, these are very intense sessions, about 45 minutes, where we're actually looking into some case studies, implementation examples. So a pretty exciting lineup here, from West Palm Beach, how if you guys have been there, it's very walkable, bikeable community, Cutler Bay, Miami Beach. So we have some really, really good sessions here. Just want to highlight that the session number 4 in Cutler Bay. Actually, it's going to be moderated by our very own Stephanie Garcia. So again, excellent program. Please make sure to join us on 28th and 29th. So that's the day before. Next slide, please. And then we have a really amazing lineup for speakers for plenary. This is the day off, the 29th. Tilly Chan from the San Francisco County Transportation Authority. We have Chris Boulay, Marketing Administrative Director. Chris Boulay, actually, great story. He actually is from Canada, but went to the Netherlands, fell in love with the community, the culture, bicycling there, and he actually stayed there. So that's a really good presentation from him. Next slide, please. Again, more presenters here that we're going to have so plenary sessions. Just bring your attention to Michael London. He's the co-founder of Street Plans Collaborative, one of the international recognized firms who really kicked off this whole tactical urbanism program. So Dan, he's going to be there to make a presentation. Next slide, please. Again, SafeStreetSummit.org. Please join us. If you mention our name, you'll get, I don't think you get a discount this time, but $100, that's all there is. We already missed the early bird special. So please visit us, and I hope see you guys there virtually. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. And last for our MPO current efforts, we have Fazil Qureshi. He is our resident mobility engineer, and he's going to be giving a brief mobility projects update. Fazil?
All right. Hey everyone, my name is Fazil Qureshi. As many of you all know me, I'm going to provide a summary of the great things that we accomplished in fiscal year 20, and then also I'm going to provide an update for this fiscal year, for fiscal year 21. Next slide, thank you. So before I go over a summary of what we've accomplished, I'm just going to briefly go over our implementation process. Every single year, we try to pursue new projects off our Complete Street Master Plan or through some of our other programs, and we try to get them program ready. And the program ready requirements consist of getting agreed scope of work, getting some partner collaboration, getting the right-of-way documents to ensure that our scope of work is within the public right-of-way, and then also trying to come up with cost estimates with DOT. And then last but not least, the last form of documentation that helps ensure that these projects are eligible for funding is providing a resolution of support and conducting some form of public outreach through the local agencies. Then once a project gets program ready, once funds become available, it'll become programmed, and then it goes to design, construction, and then eventually completion. And then depending on the projects, we will gauge the interest of possibly doing a groundbreaking event or ribbon cutting ceremony, depending upon the project and the scope and the local municipalities' viewpoint on it, if they do want to pursue that. Next. So this past year and a half has been really challenging with the whole COVID-19 pandemic. Luckily, we haven't had many impacts to any of our projects. This has not impacted our our projects and trying to get them program ready, or any of our program projects, or any of our projects in design. With the 16 projects that we have had in construction, only 3 of them had to stop for a little bit. However, we were able to work with the construction teams to help them, move forward, which they are now. One other thing that we also realize is with this whole entire pandemic, that a lot of folks don't get to see the great stuff that we're doing, and that we are moving projects forward. So as part of our new Complete Streets initiative, we decided to do a educational messaging campaign where we blast out a lot of our project updates via social media. Next. This is one of our social media posts that we put out on, I believe this is LinkedIn or Twitter, where we show some of our progress pictures. We also include where the project is, the type of scope of work that the project entails, and DOT and the construction team over there has been really good at working with us as partners and making sure that we're able to send these out in a timely and in a timely manner. We have been doing this for the last, I believe, 6 or 7 months, and I think we've gotten a pretty positive response thus far. Next. Over these past, 18 months, we have completed 12 projects all around the county for $49 million. However, we have also had many other projects in different phases of the work program move forward. Out of the other 40 projects, there has been many of them that move from design to construction, or from program to design, and etc. From the beginning of fiscal year 20 to now, we've had 52 projects in different phases for a total of about $315 million of construction funds that have been allocated or will be allocated towards those projects. And this doesn't include all the projects that we have in the MMPO. As we have worked with a lot of the municipalities, there has been a shift in the way that we're delivering projects now. Now we are doing them through LAP, where construction, CEI, and design are reimbursed back to the city, with the city administering and delivering the project. Next. I guess next, maybe one more time. And then if anyone has any questions related to any of the MPO mobility projects, please feel free to reach out to me or anyone else from our team.
Perfect. Amanda, so any questions for any of us before we move to the next item?
I'm not seeing any hand raised.
No hand raised. Okay. Perfect.
No hands raised at the moment.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome. Okay, we're going to go on to the next portion of our meeting today. And it's what we're calling defining the Complete Streets Advisory Committee for 2021 and beyond. And we are very fortunate today to start the bulk of today's meeting with a presentation given jointly by Christopher Restrepo, Principal Planner, and Peter Gies, Systems Planning Manager, in our sort of big picture, long-range planning section of the MPO. And with that, I'm going to start their presentation, and Peter, I believe, is going to begin the first part of the presentation.
So thank you very much, Amanda. Appreciate the opportunity to present to the Complete Streets Advisory Committee. For some of the longstanding members of the advisory committee, you'll probably remember I worked a lot with Ricardo in the early days of the Complete Streets Advisory Committee and some of the Complete Streets efforts. I've shifted now over to more of the programming side. I really do miss the implementation side of things. But when Ricardo and I were talking a couple of weeks ago, and Amanda as well, we were saying, what's something that might be helpful for the Complete Streets Advisory Committee members to really understand how some of our projects actually are identified and how they move through the process into implementation. And I think this is probably one of the more complicated elements of the MPO planning process, is how a project gets identified, what plan does it have to be in, how does it actually move through the programming process before it actually gets implemented. Because I know for a lot of folks out there, you know, if you're working as a planner in a city, or even if you're working in the nonprofit realm, it's sometimes really difficult to understand where a project comes from in the MPO, and it may seem rather haphazard, but there's actually a method to the madness. And so Christopher and I worked on this presentation to really take the entire MPO planning process and condense it into about a 20-minute presentation. So this is the first time that we're giving it. We're very pleased. We're hoping that this presentation is going to serve as well into the future as well. So I'm hoping we can share a little bit of knowledge with you from an MPO perspective. And even if, you know, you're not an employee, say at a city or at the county, and you are just someone working in the nonprofit sector, or you are an interested citizen, these are still great things to know, because MPOs exist throughout the entire country, and these planning processes are the same throughout the country. So if there are any access to federal dollars in a local area for transportation, those things must flow through an MPO, and they must follow this process. So as I'm kicking this off, I do want to emphasize the bottom part of my title that says the conveyor belt of project programming. As I'm going through this presentation, think of a conveyor belt, think of an assembly line, because that's exactly how a project sort of gets identified. It gets identified early on in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and then you'll see step by step it moves through this conveyor belt, this assembly line, where it ultimately is then ready for programming. So hopefully this image should help you as we go through each one of these steps. And as Amanda mentioned, I'm joined by Christopher Restrepo, a coworker of mine who's instrumental in putting together the latter part of the planning process when it comes to project programming. So we're going to kind of tag team this presentation a bit, but I'll start off with the first part, and Amanda, if you wouldn't mind going on to the next slide. Yep. Is just giving a high level look at our core products. Some of you have probably seen this graphic a lot here, and focusing specifically on the bottom part where you see those blue and green boxes. If you hit the next, if you click one more time, Amanda, you'll see we're going to highlight the 3 blue boxes there: the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the Multimodal Priorities List, and the Transportation Improvement Program. Those are the 3 core products that we're going to be facing, or that we're going to be reviewing today, and that make up that conveyor belt that I was talking about earlier. These are the core products that are required by the federal government for the MPO to create in order to assign federal funding to transportation projects. So we'll get started with the first one. If you want to go ahead and click, Amanda. Oh, we're not going to get started with the first one. We're going to go over the high level process. No, that's fine. You can go back to that slide. I'm sorry. So this is the 3 core products kind of laid out at a high level through that conveyor belt process. So we start with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is updated every 5 years. And that's why you see that blue line kind of connecting it to the Transportation Improvement Program. More on that in a moment. But basically the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is where all projects start, and they move through this annual cycle then, which is known as the Multimodal Priorities List, or MMPL, and TIP cycle, which we're going to dissect a little bit more here in the coming minutes. So if we move on to the next slide, and this will be the slide where we talk about the first step, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Next slide. So the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is seen as one of the primary core products at the MPO, and it has a 25-year planning horizon. And all of the MPO projects and programs must be listed in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan to receive funding. Now, what the Metropolitan Transportation Plan does is it kind of does a full demographic analysis and does a full needs assessment and tries to match the available transportation funding, both local, state, and federal, to needed projects in the region. There's a prioritization process that goes along with it. It gets pretty complicated at times, but generally speaking, this is where all projects sort of begin. So whenever you see a project that Fazil is talking about or that Ricardo is talking about, it likely began life here. Now, it may not have necessarily began life here as a discrete project. So it may not have been North 14th Avenue in Hollywood, but it may have been part of a program, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. So if we head on to the next slide. So in the MTP, you can see for the 2045, which was our most recent update. So if you take a look, we adopted that in December of 2019. We looked 25 years out from 2020. That brings us to 2045. We are looking at total revenues here of $12.75 billion for this plan. Now that includes everything, only as it relates to roadway capacity. So it's not just bicycle and pedestrian projects, but also includes future roadway expansions, transit, operating and maintenance and capital as well. That's all captured in here. But if, Amanda, you click on the slide, it should highlight that dark blue portion of the pie. And that one's going to be very important that number is going to be rather important for the next part of the discussion, because that number there, the $540 million, is MPO attributable funding. That's funding that comes directly to the MPO, and we can spend on whatever project we would like, whether it be a bicycle pedestrian project, whether it be a transit project, or whether it be a roadway project. The other funds in the blue and green portions of the pie typically have stipulations. So a lot of the state funding that comes down for roadways is typically for capacity. There's also state funding for transit and operating. And then in the green pie, those are all funds that are already committed as part of our transportation improvement program. Since we have a 5-year program, those 5 years are committed, and those funds are already spoken for. So the $540 million that you see here in that blue portion of the pie, or dark blue portion of the pie, are extremely notable because we can spend them on so many different types of projects, not just roadway capacity projects. So a lot of our funding, or a lot of the bicycle pedestrian projects, actually draw from this pot of money. Go on to the next slide. So within the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, we have 6 different funding programs, and you can see they're listed here on the screen. And if you click the slide again, Amanda, you will see that the first 2 programs, the roadway and transit program, have discrete project lists. Now this refers back to a statement that I made earlier, that not every project in the MTP necessarily is called out by name. However, in the roadway capacity program and in the transit program, those projects are called out by name. And the reason why those projects are called out individually by name is because they likely will require some type of federal environmental review process, also known as NEPA. Or they're going to have some right-of-way impacts or things like that. And those projects need to be stated upfront as part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. If you click again, Amanda, you'll see the remaining programs are actually program-based, which means that the projects are included by reference as a result of those programs. And since I know most of you are very familiar with the Complete Streets Master Plan, because we talk about that a lot at the CSAC, the Complete Streets Master Plan went through its own effort to identify projects and work with local governments in order to get their needs into this plan. We adopt basically that entire Complete Streets Master Plan by reference in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So this again speaks to the fact that you may not see North 14th Avenue in Hollywood as a discrete project in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, but you do see the Complete Streets Master Plan referenced in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and we link to it, and you can find the project list obviously within that plan. The same thing goes for our Complete Streets and Localized Initiatives program, which is an annual program. So we may not even have projects that are identified, they're only identified annually, and those get included by reference. And then also the Mobility Hub program as well, which undergoes a similar process as the Complete Streets Master Plan. So next slide, please. So remember, I was asking you to focus in on that $540 million slice of the pie, because those are our most flexible MPO attributable funding. We can assign those funds to basically any type of program. Well, this is how we have the MPO attributable funding assigned to in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And you may look at some of these numbers and wonder, well, they seem kind of random. Well, they're really not that random. And the reason why is because these numbers we're taking into account the existing funding streams that are available out there. So we're not just looking at the federal and state funding streams, we're also looking at the local funding streams. So take, for example, transit is a good example here, where 10% of our attributable funding goes to transit. And the reason why that number is lower than, say, the Complete Streets Master Plan or Complete Streets and Localized Initiative is because we know the surtax is proposing a lot of transit improvements and is collecting a lot of revenue in order to boost transit in the region. So our MPO attributable funding is probably better spent in the Complete Streets Master Plan program or in the Complete Streets and Localized Initiatives program. And that's why you see combined almost 55% of our funding is going to multimodal, non-motorized type improvements through those three programs. And that's where our MPO attributable funding can really make a big difference. Next slide. So I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but the presentation will be made available to you, and you can kind of see the types of projects that are included in each program. So in the roadway program, very self-explanatory. These are your standard capacity projects. In the transit program, also your standard transit projects, any light rail type projects, bus expansion projects. Tri-rail rolling stock, for example, was a project that was included in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. You're going to find that here in the transit program. And you'll see there's a little asterisk there. And the asterisk basically said that all projects included in this portion are subject to the MTP prioritization process. In the project-based funding programs, say like the Complete Streets Master Plan, those obviously follow the project prioritization process for that particular plan. However, for these two programs, the MTP prioritization process is what helps to prioritize those projects for funding. Next slide. And then here are the programmatic funding programs that we have here. And again, you'll see the same ones: Complete Streets Master Plan, Complete Streets and other localized initiatives, mobility hubs, and TSM&O and safety. And they're described here for you on the screen. Again, not going to spend too much time here, but if you ever have questions, here's a good overview of those programs. Next slide. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christopher Restrepo, who's going to take you on the next part of the conveyor belt journey and talk to you about how projects move from the Metropolitan Transportation Plan into the multimodal priorities list. So Christopher, take it away.
Thank you, Peter. So I'm going to, like Peter said, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of our multimodal priority list, and they later transition that into our transportation improvement program. This is the first slide of our section of the multimodal priority list. Amanda, if you'd like to go to the next, I'll give you a quick little overview. So you've seen this graphic before. It displays all of the core products that we have at the Broward MPO. The top three, like Peter said, are the ones that we hold within our planning and programming section. And the middle one that's highlighted in the yellow box is the multimodal priority list. So essentially what the multimodal priority list is the core product, and it serves right in the middle, a bridge between the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Program. The role of the multimodal priority list is to set the funding priorities for federal and state funds within our region. So next slide, please. Again, this is our planning process, just to show this again to you to see where we are in the conveyor belt. The multimodal priority list is the one highlighted kind of in the middle right there where it says the MPO board approves MMPL. So what we want to take away from this is that only projects contained within the Metropolitan Transportation Plan are eligible for inclusion in the MMPL. Once projects are selected for inclusion, we begin our development and approval process for getting our core product adopted. So FDOT would then use our multimodal priority list to develop their draft tentative work program, which is then presented to the MPO, and we use this for the basis for our development of our transportation improvement program. But we'll get more to that in a little bit. So next slide, please. So this is our process for developing and adopting our multimodal priority list. At the bottom in the light blue, you'll see the start process. And really what we're doing here is getting our document ready for the approval process. So that starts with reviewing the existing and new projects that we have and that we want to bring from the MTP into our MMPL. This process develops a first draft that we then send to FDOT so that they can begin their initial review of all the projects that we've submitted. After we've done that, we turn to the Turnpike so we can request their priorities so we can include it in our document later. And then we meet with FDOT to discuss any kind of comments or questions that they may have or we might have for them. Then we send a final draft after all the internal and interagency coordination is done to DOT so they can then begin working on the programming phase of it. But once that's sent, we then turn to our committee, our MPO committees, which are our Technical Advisory Committee, our Citizens Advisory Committee, and our MPO board for us to give them a presentation on what's included in our list and for them to provide any feedback they want to give to us so we can then incorporate into our document and then seek approval. Once we've done that, we take all the recommendations and comments together. We package them in a beautiful document and send it off to FDOT for final adoption on August 1st. Next slide, please. So remember when I said earlier that it was the bridge between the MTP and the TIP, so Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the Transportation Improvement Program? You have that here in that graphic here. So the multimodal priority list is right there in the middle between the two bridges. And what this slide is supposed to do is tell you all the things that we've incorporated within our MMPL that make it a little bit different than everybody else's, but hopefully everyone else catches on too. So our first feature that we want to highlight is that it is organized based off of the MTP funding programs that were established in this most recently adopted 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. We also include features such as the tracking of funds, phases, and sources, and then we produce reports based on that tracking. And then finally, we also incorporate a concept called program ready. But press pause, because in the next slide, we're going to talk about MTP funding programs. Next slide. Okay, great. Okay, so like I said, the 2045 MTP's cost feasible plan was used as a basis for our MMPL. The cost feasible plan places all the projects in 6 funding programs in order to account for the region's multimodal transportation needs. So to be consistent, we've selected our funding sources based off of these allocations that the MPO has as attributable dollars. There you have them there. Next slide. And then also we incorporate program ready. So what is program ready? So what we do to facilitate project delivery, Broward MPO enforces this program readiness, which is to include a clear scope of work, a resolution of support, a proper cost estimate, and partner collaboration. Once a project is identified as having all 4 of these aspects completed, it is then eligible for funding. And then it'll go into our Transportation Improvement Program, which is the next slide. So here's our Transportation Improvement Program. Next slide, please. So our Transportation Improvement Program is a 5-year document that's updated annually. And what we're doing in that annual update is having a comprehensive list of all of our federal, state, and locally funded transportation projects all wrapped into one document. All modes of transportation are represented here. It ranges everything from transit, roadways, bridges, aviation, seaport, rail, and bike and ped facilities. Next slide, please. So here we are back again at the planning process. So like I said, after the MMPL is adopted and sent off to FDOT, FDOT uses the MMPL to develop their work program. Once the work program is available for us to use as a draft tentative work program, we then begin the development process for the Transportation Improvement Program so that we can secure dollars for the projects for the next 5 years. Next slide. So here's a little graphic that displays the development process for the Transportation Improvement Program. At the beginning of April, we receive our Transportation Improvement Download, which is a database that we use, and we use it to do our first internal TIP review. And what that does is it allows us to do an internal staff review of all of the projects that are in there and have an opportunity to talk with FDOT if there's any discrepancies or if there's any new excitement. So we want to say thank you for. In May, the MPO then sends those comments to FDOT based on what we reviewed, and then we incorporate those comments into the draft Transportation Improvement Program. After that, we then begin our public involvement process. So we begin to release our news releases, and then we send our hard copy documents of the Transportation Improvement Program to 8 libraries within Broward County. In June, the public comment process begins, and then we seek approval from the TAC and CAC, our Technical Advisory Committee and Citizens Advisory Committee. And then July, it's our time to finalize the Transportation Improvement Program so we can send it to all of our distribution lists, which is a range of agencies, government agencies that need to review it. And then we seek board approval from our elected officials. Once all of our comments are collected, we then incorporate them into our final TIP, and we send it off to FHWA for final approval. And that's the end of July. And that all has to happen really quick until, up until July 15th. So it's a fun process. Next slide. And as an additional bonus, this past year, we've developed what we call our municipal TIP reports. And basically what this is we've identified project-specific pages for each of the projects that are in our Transportation Improvement Program dedicated to just the jurisdictional boundaries of each of our municipalities in Broward County. So what you'll find, this is an example of a page of what it looks like, is you'll find project identification information the characteristics that include anything from the work summary to who's the lead agency, the length of the project, and where you can find it in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And we also have the financial information that includes our phases, our funding sources, the years the funds are programmed for, and then our total project cost. And then we have a little section at the bottom that has a little bit extra description of the project in case you're a little bit confused. This hopefully will clear it up. And then also a project location map on each page. And to access these pages, next slide, please. You can go to our Transportation Improvement Program website. And on here, there's an important links tab, a gray box, and it has each of the different municipalities listed in alphabetical and tabular format, where you can go and select the municipality that you're interested in seeing the projects in and review them completely. And you can, again, click that link. And on this page, you can also review our multimodal priority list, which is just below it. And that's a rundown of the TIP and MMPL.
Thank you very much, Christopher. Hopefully this was helpful to you all. And again, it's a lot of information packed into a short presentation, but generally speaking, you can see the steps. And the way I always see it is that the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is where everything starts. The multimodal priorities list is that guidebook that will tell DOT how to program our funding and our projects. And then the Transportation Improvement Program is where it all happens, really. That's where the funding is assigned. So, you know, it's a three-step process. And, you know, a lot of people always ask, why does it take so long for a project to actually come to fruition, especially when you're using federal or state funds? This is part of the reason. So, Amanda, I'll turn it back over to you. I'm not sure if there are any questions or if there's anything else you want us to touch on.
Thank you, Peter. There's nothing that I want you, nothing else that I would like for you to touch on, but I want to give 30 seconds or so for people to raise their virtual hand if they have any questions. Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Christopher, very much for your presentation.
I think I just saw Roger Lelane's hand go up.
Oh, great.
Yes, Peter. I have a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Very good presentation, Restrepo and Peter. Thank you. That's very good information for all of us. Quick question. I mean, when the project is in TIP, there is also the concept of TIP amendment. Could you take a few seconds to elaborate on that as well? Sometimes, you know, we're facing some obstacles with the project and the TIP amendment is required. And, you know, sometimes FDOT say, well, it depends upon the Broward MPO to do or not to do. Could you elaborate a little bit on TIP amendment in the event that, you know, we need to do an amendment to a project which is in TIP already?
Sure. And I know you're drawing on your FDOT experience there, Roger. So,
Yes,
you want to take that one?
Sure. So typically there's two different types of amendments. There's what we call a modification and then a full-blown amendment. And if it's something that's pretty minor where we're just adjusting a couple of dollars or just a little Scrivener's error, then that could be considered a modification and it wouldn't require a full board approval. But if you're asking what triggers a full-blown amendment, typically it's things when you're adding new phases to a project that weren't originally adopted in the first Transportation Improvement Program. And also if there's a large number of money that's now being allocated to the project or removed from a project, that would require a TIP amendment. Other things could include changing of the limits. If it's more than a 20% limit change, then that would require a TIP amendment. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
The process.
Yes, you have answered the question, Restrepo, and I thank you for that. But I mean, I have another, my last question is that in here. Let's say that, for instance, there is a scheduled impact to a project that may cause the letting date to move at a different date. Of course, the project is funded, you know, to be let at a certain year. So is that possible, and would that require a TIP amendment?
So I guess to answer the question, once a project is allocated for a specific fiscal year in our Transportation Improvement Program, the expectation is that the funds do get spent in that year. If it doesn't, it could roll into what we call our roll forward. And then any money that's left over from a phase that was initially allocated for a project would then move on to the next fiscal year. And that's a process that occurs between our June and October timeframe. We produce a full roll forward report that then gets approved as our first amendment to the Transportation Improvement Program, so that it would then become officially a part of it.
And it's important to note here that when a project is programmed for funding in a specific year, it is typically very difficult to move that project from that year. So you will often see that, you know, design is funded in one year and then construction in another. And we often get questions from cities where they say, hey, can we move that forward? Or is there a way for us to spend that money now or maybe get reimbursed? The problem is those are commitments, and the Transportation Improvement Program across the 5 years is completely fiscally constrained. So when we remove a project and say we try to advance it or push it out, you then make all the other years financially unconstrained because it's completely balanced across the 5 years. So that's why, you know, it seems like we're being unflexible, but it's really to ensure that the stability of the work program is maintained and that we are not throwing off any other project. Because if you move a project forward, you're then impacting another project in the year that you're pulling that project into. So then you need to decide what project don't you want to fund 1 year in order to move that project forward. So once we have the tip and that design and construction year is set, we stick to it as much as we can. But those amendments sometimes do come up where we have to make small tweaks, and those amendments have to be approved by the board as well. And we have to redemonstrate that, you know, the tip is fiscally constrained, et cetera, et cetera.
Very good. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Ricardo?
I just want to chime in. You know, a lot of times we get that question all the time. I said, just move it out. You know, typically, and what happens when if we entertain that move, we can potentially lose that money.
Right.
And that's the last thing we want. So a lot of times it might appear that we're being very unreasonable, but we don't want to lose millions of dollars. So the last thing we want to do is move projects forward or to a different year. So it is very difficult, Roger, to move projects from 1 year to the next.
And on top of that, you know, a lot of folks have said, oh, why don't you just fund my next priority project? You know, if you're City X, well, why can't you just fund my next project in City X? Well, we have a multimodal priorities list that we just reviewed. And technically what happens is if you cancel that project, the money goes away that year and it gets assigned to the next priority project, which may not necessarily be in City X, it may be in City Y. And your project then may not come up for another few years. So we have to follow that multimodal priorities list in order to make sure that we're staying true to the process.
Good. Thank you, guys.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I think that was a great presentation. Thank you very much. Next part of our presentation, advance our slides, is understanding a little bit about the Complete Streets Advisory Committee background and general purpose. And I'm going to ask Ricardo to just give a brief description or a brief synopsis of the background of the advisory committee, how it was founded, what its intended purpose was for at the beginning, and then we'll go into some more specifics about the about how we're going to proceed with the meeting today. So, Ricardo?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Amanda. You know, initially back in, I guess, 2012, the Broward Health Regional Planning Council actually approached the MPO because they wanted to incorporate health into the transportation planning process. So they've got a grant from the CDC, the Center of Disease Control, to get some funding to do something. Not necessarily, they didn't even know what exactly they were going to do. So one of the things that they wanted to do after various meetings, they said, you know, we need to show that the streets can be designed for all users of the road. Because one of the things they wanted to push for is more activity. We want people to be more active, to walk and bike more. And this concept of complete streets at that time was kind of taking off. It was coming out of LA. And they said, well, we need to do something similar to what they're doing in LA County in California. So they decided to do the complete streets guidelines to show that, you know, roads can be designed to accommodate all users of the road. So we formed a committee of many municipalities, Broward County, the Florida Department of Transportation, to develop these guidelines to show that, you know, roads can be designed for all users of the road. So that was the initial intent of the group. It was not called the CSAC. I think it was just called the Advisory Committee. So the initial task was to build these guidelines. Those guidelines were adopted or endorsed by the Broward MPO. We're going to adopt guidelines because we don't own any facilities. Were endorsed, and that kind of kicked off the whole Complete Streets movement here in Broward. Basically, it's just these guidelines. As we move forward with that concept of Complete Streets, we decided to kind of formalize that group, saying, you know, we can help the communities or the municipalities, the local governments a little more by putting together this group of people who can help us promote this concept of Complete Streets and promote the guidelines that we have established or that the MPO has endorsed. So then that group became what we actually formalized at Complete Streets Advisory Committee, which is basically a group of passionate professionals, I guess, that could get together and learn from each other so we can push this forward. So ever since then, since 2013, we've been meeting, and they provided a lot of information. They guided our Complete Streets initiative. It was the reason why we established an initiative in the beginning of the Broward MPO. The Broward MPO, prior to this initiative, didn't fund a single dollar for bicycle pedestrian improvement. So the committee itself made a huge difference on how we actually plan and fund this type of projects. So I think that's how we evolved. So we've been meeting since then, and it's sort of if you guys know me well, I'm very informal, and I like the way things are working now. I like that we learn from each other. I like to see presentations from other folks, so we can all learn. I like bringing national experts so they can teach us how other municipalities or places around the world are implementing Complete Streets. And now we want to take it to the next level. We want you guys to be as valuable, because you are valuable, but I don't know if you saw that, if you remember the presentation that was just made, there's a yearly process that we go through to get projects programmed and assign funding. So we want the CSAC to be part of that process. We want the CSAC to actually have input on those projects that get into programming. So that's why we kicked off this presentation with the MTP, the Multimodal Priorities list to actually program, which is the TIP. So I think I covered what I needed to cover, Amanda. Is there anything else that you want me to cover so we can start this discussion on what is it that we're going to become?
Oh, thank you. No, that's great. What I wanted to point out is we're going to be doing, like I said in the beginning of the meeting, sort of state of the committee meeting today. We're going to go over what in 2016, when this committee was established by the board, we're going to go over what the MPO rules say the functions and major jobs are of the committee. And we're going to talk a little bit back and forth about, you know, how well we all think that we're actually fulfilling that role. We're going to talk about the role of membership and you know, whether or not these prescribed professions and you know, whether or not they are appropriate for the way the Complete Streets Advisory Committee actually functions. So you see on your screen here, these are words taken verbatim from the MPO rules. It says very clearly that the CSAC is meant to be an advisory board to the Broward MPO staff and the Broward MPO, you know, the MPO board on matters pertaining to transportation planning and programming, but not limited to the review of board-related transportation studies, reports, plans, and programs. And you all who have been members of the CSAC, you know, for a year or, well, for longer than a year, have known, I guess, in the last year since I've become a part of the Broward MPO, we have a relatively prescribed agenda that we follow, which is, you know, current efforts. So we do a sort of an update on what we at the MPO we're doing to advance complete streets in projects and initiatives. And then we'll typically have, you know, an internal and more in-depth presentation about something that is happening, you know, either policy-wise or project-wise, locationally, or sort of bigger picture. We'll have an outside presentation or two. Sometimes it's project related. Sometimes it's more policy related. But it seems that when I've been discussing this with Broward MPO upper management and just within our group, that our core function is to advise staff and then to advise the board on these very basic issues. And so we want to have this discussion today to reiterate this as the primary function of the CSAC. And we introduced it to our membership as this is how we're going, you know, this is what our purpose is. We are establishing a yearly calendar, and you'll see that in a minute, that reflects a little bit better what the board does on a month-to-month basis, and provides opportunity for the members of CSAC to hear about projects or issues before those items get heard by the MPO board, so that they can function in their capacity as advisory, so they can hear information before it goes to the board, and they can bring back to their colleagues, their elected officials, the city management, whoever it may be, project details that you as the complete streets, bike ped or engineering professional have, and offer a more well-rounded approach, or a more well-rounded, more in-depth just understanding for that person about what it is this project is, and how this, how, if you're looking at it through a complete streets lens, these are some of the primary, important parts of this project or this policy that maybe didn't come to the mind of a person who is just, that's just not their every day. They're not a technical expert in that field. So next slide. There's probably the most interesting part and the longest part of the information about the CSAC in the MPO rules is the matter of membership, and it says that shall consist of representatives with expertise in matters related to all sorts of different transportation, but they go very specifically into who really should be a member. And I'm just going to show this up on the screen because we're going to have some questions about, we're going to have at least one question about this in the near future here in this presentation. So it says there really should be, a member, and I'm just going to bring some things that were particularly interesting to me is, the advice that a member of the school board should be on the CSAC. And that makes sense when, of course, when we're thinking about, school, school placement, or even something like safe routes to schools. A member of a person from the Broward County Aviation, from Port Everglades, somebody from traffic engineering, and then of course, high construction and engineering. But then there are others too. Somebody from SFRTA, the Planning Council, and then it even was broken down a little bit more. Department of Health, YMCA. And it doesn't seem to me, and I think that there was an intention behind putting this in the MPO rules, but it doesn't seem to me that our membership reflects that sort of diversity. So one of the last things that we want to do is do a roll call at the end of the meeting, and to get get information from our members. Again, like just identifying who is going to be that primary CSAC member, if they want to introduce an alternate, so that they will have representation if their municipality or organization will have representation if they're not able to be there. And we just want to have a discussion about the breadth and depth of this membership requirement. Ricardo alluded to the fact that the CSAC isn't as formal a committee as some others, like the TAC or even LCB or CAC, and it's not really our collective intention to formalize the committee. It really is to reintroduce what is understood as the purpose of the committee, evaluate these membership, not necessarily criteria, but these membership guidelines, talk about whether or not these make sense for how we want to proceed in the future with the CSAC. And then the next portion of the meeting is going to be through Mentimeter with a bunch of questions, and it's going to be fairly interactive. So I'm going to proceed to the next slide. And when I was talking about making it such that the CSAC bi-monthly agenda is reflective of the Broward MPO board month-to-month agenda, you can see that this is a draft of something that we've come up here, and you can see when there are some standing items on the calendar for the board. For example, the board forum is always in January, and we always know that the Florida State Legislature session begins in March. And you can, as you go through that, you can see that there are many standing things that you can count on being heard really from year to year at that same general time. And what we wanted to do is to establish a bi-monthly calendar that is reflective of what's happening with the MPO board. So for example, typically when we're not doing a sort of a state of the committee meeting, in January, we have in place the opportunity to look at and evaluate internally C-SLIP applications, and then to hear about MTP mobility project highlights. And that's because in February, the board hears basically the C-SLIP cycle begins in February, and the MTP is heard, and the amendment cycle begins. So as you can see, as we go through there is a relation between what we want to relation between the CSAC and the board meetings, and that goes through March, May, July. Typically, that meeting is canceled, and things calm down quite a bit for the board during the summertime. So this is just something that we wanted to sort of throw out there, and I will actually open it up to questions, and let me see if there's any participants that have their hands raised. If anybody would like to make any sort of statements or comments about our move towards making the CSAC month-to-month agenda reflective of the MPO board agenda. I don't see anybody having any questions, so I'll just continue then.
One thing, Amanda, sorry, let me just, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Amanda. One of the things, and if you look at this calendar, there's a lot of things that happen throughout the year, right? There's a lot of action items that go to the board or advisory committees. So we wanted those action items, the approvals of the TIP, the Transportation Improvement Program, the approvals of the multimodal priority list, and those things to come through us as well, to come to the CSAC. So we want the CSAC to either provide some comments and be able to have some input on all those important documents. Because eventually, that is the reason why we want this kind of a little bit more formalized this committee, to make sure that you guys have a lot of input into that as well. I think that's the general intent. Amanda, I just want to quickly say, I think we have a little bit of a hard time hearing you. I don't know, there's a small echo in your video and your audio. I'm not really sure what's going on, but just want to just add that more a little more perspective. But it is about making this committee. We're still going to have a lot of presentations come in and learning from each other, but we want to make sure that you guys have a lot of input into those yearly cycle of programming as well. Okay. So I'll just any comments, questions, we'll take them now. Yes.
I don't see anyone with a comment or question, so I'll just continue, and I'm going to probably speed this up just a little bit. We're going to start the member engagement Q&A session, and this is going to be through Mentimeter, and then again, that's something that we typically use as a engagement tool, but also just a way to really gauge how people are feeling about certain things. So we're going to be using that here today. If you could go to menti.com, you see the information on the screen. menti.com/MN9IQ1WD5K. There's also a QR code that you can take a picture of, and you can follow along with Mentimeter on your phone. And the voting code is 3905993. And I'm going to give about 15 seconds for people to log on. And also, Stephanie Garcia is going to be facilitating this portion of the meeting today. So I'm going to give her a few moments to log on as the administrator.
Yes, just let me know when I can start sharing my screen. Okay, I just want to confirm, everyone, can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you. So the question is, do you regularly attend CSAC meetings? And so far we have 12 participants submitting their answers. And from those 12, we have 11 that regularly attend CSAC.
Has everybody been able to log into Mentimeter, or still?
Okay, so it seems we have 13 in total. Amanda, do you think that's the number is fine to continue with the survey? Okay. So thank you for participating. And of course, we encourage you to participate. We have, I believe, 29 participants in total in this meeting. So 13 is pretty low. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Next question is, what about the CSAC's work really interests you? What about the CSAC's work really interests you? So what is that you really like about CSAC?
And this you have opportunities to give more than one answer. And this is just to sort of gauge you know, what you like about being a CSAC member, what you find interesting, what you find informative, valuable, and if there are, you know, things that you have interest in that we're not really touching on, I'd like for you to share those with us.
Okay, so we see some answers, and let's see, presentations, training and education, new projects, trainings, update on projects, and to see what other agencies are doing, hearing about great projects, presentations and training, update on projects, information on what happens behind the scenes. That's a good one.
Oh, we're not going to share that. That's behind the scenes.
Good information and presentations, possible grants. Okay. Okay, we can see more answers. Learn about long-term projects, presentation and information, tactical urbanism. Great, so we have one.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of this, that other responses, we're covering just about, you know, we do a lot of education and training. We do give regular updates on projects, so that's good. We do have regular presentations on what other municipalities are doing, so that's pretty good. The grants, I think the grant is good. I like the grants. I need to agree. I think funding and tactical urbanism. I guess that's something that we're going to be doing now. So
yes, education bike rides. Okay, let's go biking.
Great, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So we have 18 this time, 18 participants. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. That's good comments. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Next question is, do you know what is expected of you as a CSAC member? Please provide specific duties.
Again, there's lots of opportunities to you know, offer more than one answer to this. So thank you.
And if you don't know the answer, just you can say, I don't know. It's okay to say that. So we have some answers. Learn and share, yes. That is a good one. Share experiences and learn from others. Participate and share ideas. Share best practices. Ability to share ideas. Sharing information with other agency folks. Participation. Provide input on complete streets initiatives. It seems sharing is the word, right? Okay, so we have 8 people. Provide input on projects, active participation and learn from MPO and local, and local municipalities on latest trends. Attend meetings, participate, discuss lessons learned, provide a foundation for project success.
You know, this is really, really good. One of the things that I've noticed, and you know, one of the things that we look for you guys to tell us what exactly you need to move forward with Complete Streets. And I like to provide input on Complete Streets initiatives. One of the things that we've been doing in the past is we're taking some of the recommendations to heart and actually move forward with that. The Complete Streets Master Plan is a good example of what an idea that came from this committee, and we're able to actually allocate some funding and actually move forward with that effort internally. So that's really good.
Okay, perfect.
Attend meetings with okay, excellent.
Yeah, 13 answers. Okay, let's go to the next one. And the next question is, how well do you think the CSAC keeps you informed about complete streets and mobility plans and projects in Broward County.
I think
So
that's
it
very
seems-
interesting, and I'm not surprised by that. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems there is a space for improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we need that. We got some work to do here.
Right.
This is what we wanted to, well, yes.
But then we,
this
you
is
know,
what exactly-
we have to think about what, yeah, keep you informed about mobility plans and projects, and then, you know, again, understand what our prescribed role is to advise, and if we don't know, we can't advise. So, very important.
Yeah, and just and I'm thinking here, and Amanda, it's also we need to, because we talk about a lot about what we're doing. Maybe we need to bring some of the locals, the county, the city, or maybe FDOT to come and give some maybe standard or regular presentations to see what they're doing as well. But this is good.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Great.
Excellent.
Yeah, Amanda, I have a question. Do we have any opportunity for the CSAC members to, for example, provide ideas about what they would like to see?
Yeah, they can. They can make, if they go to Mentimeter, if you see on the bottom of the screen, you have these 3 bubbles. The 14 is the number of people. And then those 2 others, you can make a comment or ask a question. So they can activate those bubbles and they can interact with, and what they say will be published immediately on the screen. Unfortunately, they're in a beta, so they can't, with these 2 icons, they can't save this information, but we can, you know, our meeting is recorded, so we'll have a visual record of it. But if anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question, they can do so using those icons bottom right of their screen.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and they can make comments throughout. Any comments you guys have, please let us know. It's definitely your input is very valuable.
Okay, I will continue with the slides. Next question will be, how well do you think the CSAC keeps you informed about computer street best practices and educational opportunities? And the options are very well, so, no well at all.
Yeah, I think included in this question, if you hover over the question itself, Stephanie, I think this might be the one where there's more information about education grants. I think it's yeah, I think it's very similar to what we saw on the first question of this nature.
Okay, let's continue. And we have the next question will be, how often do you learn of projects, plans, etc. for the first time through your involvement with CSAC? So maybe the question could be also, for example, if you receive emails from CSAC, maybe if you are part of the newsletter, the MPO newsletter or the e-blast, of the MPO. You know, there are different resources that the MPO has as well.
Yeah, but this is telling, you know, this is actually very good. One of the things, you know, for the previous questions, one of the things that we're very proud of is our training program. And we do have very robust, we bring national recognized speakers, experts to come in, do some training. 2 years ago, we had, I think, 6 trainings in 1 year. So, it's good to know that, you know, we still need some work. We still need to do a little better. So, thank you. Oh, thank you for your honesty. This is really good.
Yeah. Okay, let's go with the next one. Are you tasked with reporting back about CSAC meetings to a supervisor or other colleagues? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, let's see. Okay. Thank you for answering. This is really helpful. Let's go with the next one. Share your thoughts on how well you think the CSAC functions as an advisory committee to the Broward MPO board and staff. Was not aware. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Very well. They work closely.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay, it seems some of you didn't know that this was one of the functions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can see here, this is kind of, you know, this is kind of why we're doing this today. To really get an idea of how we currently function, how we're supposed to function, what our purpose is, and to really, guide our approach to 2021 and then establish a good, almost a system for, for the next few years. So this is actually, this really helpful. Thank you so much for your participation, everybody. There's just a couple more questions, and go ahead, Stephanie. Thank you.
After learning about the MPO rules and its guidance, what are your thoughts about CSAC membership?
Well, I think that's kind of telling.
Yeah, it seems we have something here. See? Okay, sorry. Yeah.
You just have to scroll up.
Yeah. Great. I will attend meetings. No, I will still attend meetings. Well represented. Okay. Could be more proactive. Okay. So this is the opportunity to, to also being proactive by, providing more feedback. This is the opportunity to improve CSAC, so go ahead. Let's see. It appears to be a diverse group of entities. Informative, I will attend.
Great.
I love being a CSAC member. I would like to participate more.
Thank you.
Equal representation is paramount, but some of the size and role of some agencies may require additional representation. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Yep.
What do you think was the most successful aspect of the Computer Streets Advisory Committee in 2020? Oh, look, we have a question.
I just saw the question. The question was, and again, it's ephemeral in nature, so I apologize for that. But the question was, I'm a new CSAC member. Explain how CSAC functions in relation to the TAC. Ricardo, do you want to go ahead and take that question?
Same here. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, one of the, the TAC is official technical advisory board to the Broward MPO board, similar to the CAC, which is the Citizens Advisory Committee, which they actually have official input into documents, and they make recommendations to the actual board to take into consideration, because actually the final say is always with the MPO board. The MPO board makes the final decisions. However, they take into consideration the recommendations made at the TAC and the CAC. I think what Amanda showed you earlier, that the Complete Streets Advisory Committee is really more of an advisory board to staff, and through staff, we make recommendations to the MPO board. So that's really the difference. The big difference is the TAC makes direct recommendations to the MPO board, whereas the CSAC makes recommendations that go through staff that eventually go to the MPO board.
Yeah, one example, a specific example is the Complete Street Design Guidelines. I don't know if you remember, but in 2019, we made a special request to the CSAC members. And that request was to provide feedback and to review the draft of the Computer Street Design Guidelines. And those comments that some of you sent to the MPO staff were addressed, and the recommendations were incorporated into the final document. So that's an example of how CSAC members can help the MPO into creating better documents and tools for the municipalities. I remember Broward County sending comments, the city of Deerfield Beach, the city of Fort Lauderdale. So we know that sometimes it's complicated, to do your work and also help the MPO, review documents, but this is an opportunity for you to comment about something that will help you in the future. So this is just an example, the design guidelines. But we also had the opportunity with the Computer Streets Master Plan and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Safety Action Plan. So more documents are coming up and more opportunities are coming for CSAC.
And I think that's an excellent point, because you guys have a lot of input into those documents that were prepared by the Complete Streets Initiative team, and eventually made it to the MPO board for actual endorsement or acceptance. But I think what you see today is that we're going to give you more documents, more important documents on a yearly basis. So the same documents or the same efforts that the TAC and the CAC actually looked at and reviewed and made comments on, the CSAC will have the same opportunity to make comments. And your comments will be documented and sent through us, through staff. I think that's the thing. The TAP doesn't come to you guys in a yearly basis. So this year we'll be coming to you. So all these efforts that you saw earlier, and you saw that the schedule laid out by Christopher Restrepo, where there's a lot of things that happen throughout the year, and this is on a yearly cycle. So we want to make sure that all these documents actually come to the CSAC for official input as well.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. Okay, next question. What do you think the Complete Streets Advisory Committee needs to improve in 2021? Push for increased funding, grant information, policy changes, funding. Guest speakers. Discuss success failures. Shorter meetings.
Shorter. That's a good comment. That's a good.
Out of state presenters. Okay.
What grant? Seems like funding is like a very
Yes.
common theme here, you know.
Yeah, it really is.
But you know, I don't know if you want to mention the policy guidelines that we're developing, Amanda. I think that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, there's a team of us that are working on a Complete Streets policy guidebook, which is it's sort of a 4-part document. It's an inventory of all the complete streets, implementation policies, plans, you know, from a resolution down to an actual like planning document in Broward County, and some documentation in other parts of Florida. Best practices of complete streets in Broward County, as well as information about what works really well to implement complete streets projects, the best method for implementation, meaning like codification or you know, working through an adopted policy, an adopted plan, and how those different methods for methods for implementing complete streets actually work really well for different localities. And then at the end of the document will be sort of like worksheet templates for how you and your municipality or even through your organization can understand complete streets policies and use these templates to adapt to your particular location or organization, and submit those to your you know, your C-suite or your upper management in your city, and hopefully help the implementation process along through sort of expedited and fast-tracked a method for policy adoption. So we're working on that, and we'll be working on it throughout the spring, and you'll be getting some updates here and there from us, but likely not all that long considering what we talked about today.
Yeah, and of course we want to bring the policy guidelines into the CSAC for comments and review, so you guys will have actually a lot to say how this document at the end of the day will look like. So
Yes, thank you, both of you. So we have other comments that I consider we have to say it because this is really important right now and relevant. One of the comments is discuss lab certification.
Good one.
Yes, and also active participation. So how do we do in order to procure more participation from CSAC members, right? That's a good question, and we're gonna work on improving that. But we need your support, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there, go ahead, Stephanie, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I just want to ask, Mike, is this the last question or there's one more question?
This is the last question before we were going to go into the mission, vision, and goals. But I really think that, yes, we pause here. I think that it might be a good idea for us to hold the mission, vision, and goals for another meeting after we digest the outcomes of this discussion, and so as not to rush it. And, you know, considering we really only have 8 minutes left of our meeting, I'd rather us table that for the time being, go through a report out, like the roll call and report out, and have that be the end of our meeting, if that's okay with you, Ricardo.
No, I just one thing I wanted to say before this question ended is, you know, that the MPO, we can bring a lot of money to do a lot of projects, but it's really up to the cities, the owner of the facilities, to allow us to make this, to implement this type of projects. Excuse me, give me one. Apologies. So it's really up to you guys to let us, the cities, the owners, the counties, the state who owns these facilities, to let us go and build these things, right? So we really definitely need your support. We can't do it without you. So one of the things that I always like to do here is, what is it that, you know, that we need to provide to the local governments to continue doing this? You know, do you need more training? Do you need more guidance? Do you need more presentations? The policy guidelines, again, it was recommended a couple years back. So he goes, well, we need policies. We need something to help us sell this concept to our commissions. So just keep that in mind. You know, we're always open for ideas, but at the end of the day, it's about, yeah, the MPO can bring in a lot of money, but we can't do it without the support of the locals. And, you know, you guys from technical staff, you guys have, it's a difficult task sometimes to talk to elected officials, upper management. Hey, yes, we do want this bike lane. We do want this complete streets. We do want wider sidewalks. We do want multimodal. So how can we help you? And at the end of the day, how can we help you guys with that conversation with your upper management and your elected officials? So just keep that in mind as you start thinking about things that you want us to do, especially this year. Then, you know, depending on where we are with complete streets here, we made some, as far as I'm concerned, some big strides. We went from $0 back in 2009 to funding almost $400 million in bicycle pedestrian improvements. So we want to continue that trend. So let us know, again, what is it that you want us to train, or what is it, whatever you guys need. And definitely that will help us guide how we're going to start developing the Complete Streets Initiative in the next couple of years. That's all, Amanda. That's all I wanted to say.
I'm going to go ahead and bring us back to the PowerPoint, because the next thing we're going to do is member updates. So we can go ahead and.
Okay, I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you.
This is Carrie. I just wanted to point out that we did have someone with their hand raised for a while. I don't know, Roger just took his hand down, so I don't know if he still has a question.
Yes, Carrie. It's kind of like a comment as well. One of the Mentimeter question was the best practices for complete street projects. It is a good question, but I think we need to try to narrow it down a little bit, because you have best practices during scoping of the project, during funding of the project, during design of the project, or even sometimes during construction of the project. So because best practices, are kind of like, all along the project. So when I saw the question, I was thinking myself, how do you answer it, So, or that I wanted to understand exactly, how you come up together, with the best practices at what phase of the project that you are making reference to when the question was about best practices for a complete street project.
That's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah. Because sometimes, during scoping, during public presentation, public outreach, we face different scenarios, we learn from them as well, even in the design development, we face some issues, and we do have some best practices, in every scenarios, we can compile, best practices as far as, how to tackle some issues and so on. But that's kind of like a comment, that for the future.
No, thank you. That's a really good comment, Rod, so much.
All right, Ricardo.
Do any members have anything to share about anything that they're working on? Now is the opportunity to engage us in your work. So I'd love to hear what our partnering cities are working on. Any interesting CIP updates? Thank you.
I think Larry,
Go ahead, Larry. Thank you.
Good. You're welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Great meeting so far. I just wanted to mention that FDOT does have a Broward MPO scheduling report. Ricardo, I know you and I have been working on this since I probably started my new job in OMD. This is something that I'd like to make a presentation on in the next meeting, maybe in March. And this might be a good opportunity for this committee to provide some feedback to the department or the PM on scope, reviewing the scope of the project, confirm the scope before it comes into design. So it's probably during the multimodal scoping form period, during that portion of the schedule. So this is something I'd like to make a presentation on the next meeting if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Absolutely.
Noted. Thank you. I'll be in touch with you, Larry. Thanks so much. Okay, no more member updates.
I was expecting that, there's not a lot going on during a pandemic, so definitely we ourselves have stopped some events as well. So I think hopefully next time we'll have more events happening. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Amanda, I would like to say something really quick. So as you know, in March, we have the Florida Bike Month. So please let us know if you have anything programmed. It could be even virtual. We would like to know a little bit more. And you know that we have our newsletter, MPO newsletter, or e-blast, and we can help you promote it. And we will also be sending you more information about what the MPO is doing. We are planning to, of course, host the Let's Go Biking event. This time will be virtual. And we are working on doing something really fun. And of course, include all the municipalities in Broward County. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so this really concludes our meeting for today. Unfortunately, we did want to go over some, ideas for CSAC mission, CSAC vision, and some goals. But it's kind of a big part of the planning process, and I feel that it's better for us to wait until our March meeting to discuss those, especially so that they can be reflective of the conversation that we've had today. Y'all are very interested in funding, very interested in, policy, and you gave us a lot of really excellent answers to the questions that we posed for you today. And I know sometimes this can be difficult and it can feel like pulling teeth participating in this kind of a meeting. But given the constraints of the platform and the fact that we aren't really looking at each other, I think that it was productive. Myself as the manager of this committee, I think that it was very helpful for me to be able to take this information, synthesize it, and apply it for the rest of the year. I think those last two questions that we asked in Mentimeter, you know, what did we do well? What do we need to improve upon? Those really were the most important questions that we asked. And thanks for Stephanie for providing those. Sometimes I'm blind to the work that I'm doing, so I didn't ask something that was kind of obvious, and thank you for providing that insight to me. So those two questions really were helpful, and I'd like to ask Ricardo to just close the meeting, and I thank you all very much for participating.
I couldn't hear you very well, Amanda. Apologize. I think.
I was just saying, Ricardo, if you want to just close the meeting out, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for participating.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. This is very productive. We got some work to do from our end. So thank you for your honesty, and definitely we're gonna go back and regroup here internally and make sure that this next year is gonna address some of those comments that we received today. Thank you so much. And our next meeting is March 8th. So hope to see you there. Register Sage Street Summit, January 28th, 29th. So please go sagestreetsummit.org. It's a great event, so please do that. All right, and thank you again for your time and comments today.
Take care, Ricardo.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.